The Pantry Challenge has just ended, and my goodness, I learned more this year than I expected to learn. I've done this several years before, and for some reason, I just learn more and more every time I do it. So it has changed several things in what I felt sure was my solid plan, both on the preservation side and on the growing side for this year. So I'm excited to share those with you. Welcome to Grow and Preserve. I'm Carter. I'm so glad you're here today. Let's get started. There's a lot to talk about. So let's start off with some of the things that I learned in this go round. The first thing is that the salad bar for me is king, and that's something that really made this challenge so much easier. I had no lacking of fresh vegetables because I always had the salad bar. Of course, there was also bok choy and cilantro on there as well. So that was huge for me in making this such an easy pantry challenge. The next thing I learned is that the meal starters that we did this past year are so easy and so tasty. So it was just the simplest thing in the world to open a jar of, say, chicken verde. I think we did this twice this year, and put some rice on the stove. And there was so much flavor. All my veggies were in here. All the seasoning was in here. The chicken was in here. And it was done. That was probably the easiest thing I did. So that was a big eye-opener for me because I haven't really done meal starters in the past. I mean, I've done a few that I've kind of treated as meal starters, like beef tips and gravy, but there wasn't a lot of flavor in there. It's not like I could open that, put it on rice, and go, oh, wow, this is great. But these complete meal starters that I did, I need more of those. The next thing, and I know you've probably figured this out if you watched all of my videos this past month, but sauces and chutneys and relishes are very important to the way I cook. Very important. And if I had not had those, I think that things would have fallen a little flat without a lot of fresh fruit and vegetables. So those were a big win and a super replacement for having all the fresh items that I didn't go buy in January. Let's talk about home canned meat. You know, I think it gets maligned somehow. People think, ooh, you know, they think Spam, or they think Vienna sausages, or deviled ham, or what. Home canned meat is great. It is so versatile, so useful, so easy, and as far as I'm concerned, it's something that I can never have too much of on my shelf. So try out some home canned meat if you haven't already. Potatoes. So we all know I don't like the traditionally canned potatoes, but back in the fall, I tried canning some hash browns and some French fries. And these two items are two of my very favorite and most useful items now, particularly the hash browns, because they are so versatile. I mean, so versatile. They come out perfect. You would not know that they started as canned. They're far better than, I did some, I don't know, what do you call them? Potatoes O'Brien that were in the freezer. I did that back in August, I think. And they come out a little mushy when you go to cook them. These canned hash browns were just absolutely fantastic. The next thing, again, is personal to my way of cooking. And it surprised me a bit. I always think of myself as a big tomato sauce user, and I have to make more sauce, and I have to make more sauce, and that's a big goal every year, grow enough tomatoes to make sauce. I don't use much tomato sauce, it seems. And, you know, I know this was only a month, but even looking back, you know, over the past few months, my tomato sauce really hasn't been a crucial lacking element in my pantry. So while I am going to make some tomato sauce, it shouldn't be my focus. Diced tomatoes and tomato-based sauces and relishes and whatever should really be my focus there. So I'm going to make sauce with what I have left in the freezer that I should have done in January and I didn't get to. And then next year, I'm not going to focus on making any sauce at all unless our way of eating completely changes. by then, but that's what I'm planning. Let's talk about these. I seem to have become addicted to these, and I'm not terribly happy about that because I don't like really any of the ingredients. And one little package is like $5.39. I think we went through 4 packages in the month of January. That's like, you know, a line item on my budget. That's ridiculous. So the only thing I do like about these, well, a couple things I like about these. One, they cook up just like regular tortillas. They taste just like regular tortillas. But almost more importantly is that they can stay low carb, so both David and I can eat them. I don't like that they have gluten in them, but he's not having that much of an issue with gluten anymore, so I could deal with that. But the main point here is that I need to find a homemade replacement for these that keeps the carbs down. So that is high on my list of something to accomplish this year. I need to do a copycat recipe for these because that was really a bottleneck. If I had run out of those, it would have been a big problem. So let me know if anyone else is interested in that because, you know, I realize the paleo keto thing may be just a very small subsection of you guys. The next thing is that eggs are very crucial for us. We have a lot of eggs. I have eggs in dishes. I have a lot of fried eggs. I like them breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Unfortunately, we can't have chickens in our subdivision, and we have no plans to move, hopefully ever. but anyway, fortunately, my wonderful friend Christine brought eggs. But I do need to find a backup source for the grocery store and for Christine for eggs. So that will be on my list. I need to get that figured out this year. The next thing that I learned is that apples, I like an apple in salad. So I need to find a way to have some crunchy, fresh tasting apples. We did plant apple trees last year, so it may be a couple more years before they're actually ready. But I was watching someone the other day and they talked about canning pickled apples. And they said that the apples stayed crunchy. So I know it sounds a little odd, pickling apples, at least it did to me, but I eat them only in salads. So it's not like I, eat a fresh apple to bite into. But I like them in salads, and I put vinegar on my salads anyway. So it might not be as far-fetched for me as I think it is. So I need to figure that out. And then the last thing, and I knew this, but I'm not sure I understood the quantities that I really needed. But we are heavily dependent on peppers, both sweet and hot, onions, and garlic. I even had someone, lovely woman, pointed out that she didn't like peppers and onions, so she couldn't eat much of what I made. And I thought, well, you know what? It was probably in nearly every dish. So I really need to make sure that I have enough of that preserved in one form or another. Okay, so let's talk about how all of this is going to affect my garden plan for the year. The first is that I am going to grow my lettuce inside year-round. Usually I'll grow it in the garden, and you get bigger heads that way, and they get a little bit crunchier. And I do that spring and fall. But you also get, at least in my area, slugs and snails. Lots of slugs and snails. And now that I have a second shelf down in the grow room, so I don't need both shelves for all of my seed starting. I can do that on the one I've been using for years. Now that I have a second shelf, I'm just going to grow lettuce there, and I'm not going to worry about having buggy lettuce. So I'm pretty excited about that. It also frees up a little more space in my garden, so that's a very good thing as well. So secondly, baby butternut squash is what I grew this year. They're tiny. David does not like butternut squash. I like butternut squash. This is the perfect size just for me. So I'm going to grow some more of this, I think, this year. I had decided not to because our squash bugs here were so bad last year. I wasn't going to grow anything in the squash family. But This is really great. So I think I might add back in some baby butternut squash. Sweet potatoes. Now, I'm a big fan of sweet potatoes, but again, we do the low carb thing so often that I just don't need as many as I think I need. Secondly, I do not like sweet potatoes canned. I tried again to eat some canned sweet potatoes and they were okay, but yeah, no. So I'm not going to grow as many sweet potatoes as I thought I had planned, but I am going to grow some. So the salsa verde, this was a huge surprise to me. I had never canned this before. I grew tomatillos this year, and they were kind of a nightmare to grow. I had 3 plants, only 1 produced, and it didn't produce very much, and the deer ate most of what it did produce. So I'm not going to grow them again this year, and I knew that going in. However, I am going to buy them this year, and I'm going to can them. I'll buy them and I'll stick them in the freezer, which is just fine for this because I roasted them for the salsa verde. And I will wait for my green tomatoes to come in at the end of the season, and then I'll make some more salsa verde. Onions and garlic and peppers, we talked about that. I do need to make sure that if I can't grow enough, like for instance, I can't grow enough onions to last me the year, that when they're on sale, I buy them and preserve them in some form or fashion. I don't have a freeze dryer, so more than likely it'll be chopping and freezing, and that's fine. You know, I do have a dehydrator and I have some dehydrated onions, but I really prefer them frozen. So I will keep an eye out for sales for that. Peppers, there were a few times last year when the peppers were so prolific that they got away from me, because I was going to can them, turn them into pickled peppers, and what I really need to do in those circumstances is to make sure I dice them and freeze them. So please hold me to that this year. I really want to make sure that I preserve every single thing that comes in. And garlic, I know I can't grow enough garlic for a year, but I can buy one of those big bags of organic peeled garlic from Costco, and I can preserve it in multiple different ways. So that I will be doing for sure. Oh, potatoes. From what I can see, we have a hard time growing russets down here. Day lengths, I don't know what it is, but anyway, russets are not really on the list of potatoes that I seem to see down here for home gardeners. So I'm gonna buy the russets whenever they are on sale, and make sure that I can plenty of these hash browns. But I did, instead of just growing the yellow flesh potatoes like I did last year, I did get some white flesh potatoes. Now whether they'll be excellent as french fries, you know, I don't know if they will, but they might work as hash browns. So I'll be trying some of that. So I have yellow potatoes going in the garden, and I have white flesh potatoes going in the garden. Now let's talk about canning priorities for me this year. Okay, fruit sauces. Top canning priority for me. I really can't have too many of those. We use them quite often. I really enjoy them, and to me they just take the flavor up to a whole new level, make everything bright. I don't have to worry about having fresh peaches, fresh mango, you know, whatever. So I will buy those at the store. I will buy those at the farmer's market. I will buy those from a local farmer. I can't grow mangoes or anything here. So I'm okay with buying all the fruit I need to make sure that I have plenty of fruit sauces on the pantry shelf. Another canning priority is tomato salsa. We talked about this a bit earlier. David really, really enjoys the tomato salsas. So I will do several of those. Definitely focus on that this year. Salsa verde, we just talked about. You know, this is my surprise revelation, but I will make sure I have plenty of that on the shelf, because I only have, I think, 6 jars left of that. I'm going to make, and I never got around to my red enchilada sauce this year, but I also want to make some green enchilada sauce. And I'm probably going to make up this recipe. So I'm going to get that on there. I just think that would be a really nice addition, whether we're actually having enchiladas or not. I also like some other sauces that kind of make up make a meal, right? Sauce is, not salsas. Sauce is that can go over meats. So like perhaps a steak Diane sauce would be really kind of fun to add to it. More of an onion gravy. I use my French onion soup mix as an onion gravy, but I could probably do one more specific to an onion, maybe onion and mushroom gravy kind of thing. Of course, without the thickeners. I don't use clear gel. I thicken it on my own afterward. But I think that would be a fun thing to have on the pantry shelf. So I think I'll try some of those this year. If you have any ideas, let me know. Potatoes, we talked about potatoes. There will be a lot more potatoes that I work to get on my shelf this year. We talked about apples, and I do want to find a way to preserve some crunchy apples, fresh tasting apples for my salad. So if you have any ideas there, please let me know. I will look into canning pickled apples, and maybe we'll do a test run and see how it goes. I don't want an applesauce. We don't need applesauce. Apple butter I like, but that's just not a replacement for me in this circumstance. Chutneys, the apples get kind of soft because they're really cooked into the chutney before they go into the jar. So if you have any ideas there, I would love to know about it. Chutneys, jams, and other fancy condiments. So the bruschetta we have loved that I made last year. I'll be making some more of that because I think I only made 4 or 5 little half pints of that. Chutneys, you know by now that I just love the chutneys. It just takes anything to a different level. It's kind of like the salsa, but not in a Mexican kind of way. So I'll be making a lot more chutneys, probably a greater variety of chutneys. I definitely know that I love the pear, I love the mango, I love the apricot, I love the cranberry. So I'll be making all new versions of those. But there are plenty of things you can make chutneys out of. Kind of like a cherry chutney sounds really good to me. Some kind of berry chutney I think also sounds good. So if you have any thoughts for me there, or anything you want me to try to find and make for you, that would be great as well. Meal starters. We talked briefly about this chicken verde. I have made, I'm looking at it over here on the counter over here. I think I have maybe 18 quarts of this chicken verde, and that's plenty. So I have the chicken verde, plenty of that, and I have plenty of the beef meal starter, which has the roasted tomatoes and onions and garlic in it, and it's delicious. It's like instant pot roast. But I would like a couple other varieties of meal starters just because that is so easy. So I'll be working to come up with some new recipes for that. Meals in jars, we didn't talk about that. Did eat a couple of those during the challenge, and we eat a lot of those like kind of off camera. There were several days when lunch was just a meal in a jar, and because I'd already shown it, I didn't need to show it again. The Brunswick stew, I need a lot more Brunswick stew. This is so good and so easy, and one of my very favorite things. Chilies, David loves to work his way through the chilies, so I have a couple different varieties of chilies now, and I will say that my neighbor down the street had us over for chili, I don't know, a couple months ago, and it was the best, most totally different chili I've ever had. It was really good. So I'm going to get her recipe and see if I can tweak it for canning. So I know I'm going to do that. Oh, I've had a request to show you chicken corn chowder, and I'm down to just, I don't know, 1 or 2 jars of that on my shelf, so I'll definitely be doing some more of that. And I may do some chicken tortilla soup, of course canned without the tortillas. So there are a few things that I want to do, but these are easy. They're just easy. It's a lot of work up front, but then it's no work after that. So it's a pretty good trade-off if you make enough at one time. Broth. Oh my goodness. I'm going to need more broth. I have a lot of turkey broth, so I'm good. I think I probably have 16 quarts of turkey broth. I only have a couple quarts left of chicken broth, and I think 4 quarts of onion stock, and maybe 3 or 4 quarts of beef broth. So I need to make sure that I get my broth up to speed. I made a few years ago a really, really tasty beef broth. And of course we went through that over my just kind of basic beef broth. So I think I'm gonna go back and do that really super tasty, somewhat time consuming beef broth, and I'll just do it in a really large quantity because tremendous flavor in that broth. So that's definitely on my list. I need more chicken broth. I think I'm okay on onion broth. I just don't use that very often. All right, let's talk about one little item that I use a lot, and I could can it, but I'm not going to because it seems to me that the amount of effort and time involved for such little quantity is just way over the top when I can pay $1.20 or so per can. This diced green chilies. I need to make sure that I always have these on the shelf. Well, I could can them, I could grow them. I can't do it in any kind of quantity that would let me not go to the grocery store and still remain sane. So these I will continue to buy and stock up on from the grocery store. So I feel like that was a lot to learn in 1 month. It was such a useful experience for me. So I'm very glad to have done it. I'm really kind of glad that filming every single meal is done now. I will continue to film some as I use my home canned food or home preserved food, and I hope that you'll enjoy that. But in the meantime, I'm looking for some ideas. I'm going to do a lot of research and find a bunch of ideas, adding some new and different things. You know, I don't want, of course, I want the basics. I want the potatoes. I want the canned chicken. I'll be doing all of that. But, you know, I have videos on that. I want some fun things. Some fun things, some different things, some, oh my gosh, that's all I need for dinner, that and a bag of rice. So if you have any ideas, you have anything you want me to come up with a perfect canning recipe for, please let me know. So I did want to make sure that I talked to you about how much money I spent during January. And it wasn't bad at all. I had hoped to go the whole month without buying anything. I did go buy some apples. I bought a pack of apples from Costco. It was $6, and by the third day after buying those apples, they were mushy. So that to me was kind of a waste of $6. The next thing I bought was a package of crackers. I had to have some gluten-free crackers to take to a friend's house as an appetizer platter, and I didn't have any of those in the pantry. But they were $6 for a little package of crackers. So I should have just made something myself. So I spent a total of $12 for the month of January, and I think I can live with that. So I'm planning my seed starting schedule right now, and I'm about to get a few more things started. And I would love to know where you are in planting your garden, if you're going to grow a garden this year, if you're going to add to it, if you're going to grow some things that you grew last year, but not everything you grew last year. I feel like it's a year where I want to stock up on the things I really use. To me, last year was really about experimenting and trying all the things because I'd never had as much room in which to garden as I do since we moved to this house last year. So this year, I'm really going to focus on what is going to reliably be used to feed my family. So that is a lot to learn in 1 month and a lot of changes to make. I really felt like I knew where I was headed going into this canning year, going into this gardening year. But I've made some changes that I think will really take my production of things that we actually use to a whole new level, and I'm very excited about it. So I look forward to having you come along with me for the journey, and I would love to know what you're planning and if anything has changed or what you're most excited about for this coming year. Thanks so much for being here. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.